Good afternoon and welcome back to the fifth day of our faculty development program on envisioning the future multidisciplinary approaches in research on languages and literatures. We are excited to continue this insightful journey and explore further dimensions of interdisciplinary research. To seamlessly continue this theme of this FDP, it is my great honor to introduce Professor Ashok Thorat, founder director of the Institute of Advanced Studies in English, Pune, and the Center for Digital Humanities with a PhD in pragmatics, Sir has made significant contributions to linguistics, pragmatics, and digital humanities. He has authored over 14 books and 40 research papers exploring topics from Indian literature to digital tools for humanities research. His leadership in establishing the Center for Digital Humanities in 2014 has made it a hub for exploring how digital tools can reshape research in the humanities with a special focus on language, literature, and culture. His pioneering efforts have facilitated workshops, conferences, and research projects that integrate technology with traditional humanities studies. Today, Sir will deliver a session on digital humanities, a multidisciplinary approach to research in language and literature, illustrating how digital tools can expand and enrich our understanding of literature and language in innovative ways. This aligns perfectly with the core theme of our faculty development program, where we focus on integrating multidisciplinary approaches to contemporary academic research. I now welcome Sir for this FDP and hand over the session to Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pungudi, and
Thank you, sir.
you have very appropriately introduced me. Basically, you focused on my relation with digital humanities. Because I have been a versatile person. I was an university administrator. I was dean for 11 years. So I spent most of my life in administration. In addition to that, I have been teaching and researching in pragmatics and linguistics and whatnot. But it's good that you all know me for digital humanities. Despite the fact that I'm not a great expert in digital humanities, obviously I'm one of the founder members of Digital Humanities Alliance of India. So for your sake, I should say that I know a little bit of digital humanities, and I'll try to convey to you what digital humanities is. And during my informal discussion with Dr. Pungudi, I gathered the impression that most of the participants are genuinely interested in digital humanities. Maybe most of them are not actually practicing digital humanities. I hope my assessment is correct, and therefore I build my speech with this assumption. So I'll begin with a little bit of elementary discussion and then move on to transitions from conventional to digital, and then I'll move on to digital humanities proper, and finally I'll give you some examples of projects in digital humanities, and then I'll end up with NRF, National Research Foundation, that is directly related to research scenario in India. And in a sense, I'm very fortunate to have got an opportunity to work as chairman for funding under Spark initiative of Government of India in the first round, where we sanctioned roughly 37 projects in digital humanities. And the grant was on an average 2 crore rupees per project. So you can understand what is the gravity of this program. I'll touch upon that towards the end, and then I'll open my session for discussion. So let me once again try to share my PPT, because most of the participants feel uncomfortable unless there is PPT in front of them, right? They're not interested in watching the resource person. They need some pointers, right? So I'll open my PPT. Just give me a few seconds. Can someone tell me whether my PPT is visible?
It's visible, sir.
That's good. So I'll go ahead like a teacher in a systematic manner. Let's look at humanities. What happens, we all have been teaching languages and literature and whatnot, but rarely we think about the origin of humanities and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into the depth of it, but I'll just touch upon it and then move on to the progression. You all know the digital humanities are academic disciplines that study human nature and human condition. Now, human nature, human condition, human response, human culture, everything that is human is being studied in different subjects which are grouped under an umbrella called humanities. I need not explain it in detail, but the primary aim of all these disciplines is to define culture and to gain greater understanding of the human experience. And you all know human experience is not something definite. If you distinguish between computation and artificial intelligence, you will get a little glimpse of humanities there also, because all computational methods or techniques, they achieve whatever is determinate, definite, certain, irrefutable. Whereas artificial intelligence goes beyond that and enters into the area of indeterminate or unpredictable or uncertain, which is the soul of humanities, or which is the soul of human experience. Because human life is uncertain. There is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of undefined things in human experience, culture, whatever we talk about. So that is basically being human. It's a very dynamic experience. It's a very dynamic phenomenon. And to enhance understanding of this, every now and then people come with new theories, new areas, new topics, new approaches, new perceptions. But the core concern of all these researchers is to organize and disseminate humanistic knowledge. An example of subjects that are covered under this umbrella are literature, language, history, philosophy, religion, arts, and music, etc. Now, what is important for our purpose today is how these humanities have given way to digital humanities. Okay, so I'll deal with two very important transitions which we all have witnessed. The first transition was the introduction of the printing press. Somewhere in the 15th century, Caxton developed a printing press. Prior to that, it was only writing system in existence. And around 1st century, the alphabets got developed and so on and so forth. I won't go into those details again. But printing press is important for us because printing press enhanced circulation, and along with this enhanced circulation of knowledge through printed pages, it also introduced certain stabilizing practices. What are those stabilizing practices? Look, printing press has its own way of working. You have to typeset, you have to create formats, and then you have to print. So these requirements of the very machine called printing press, they introduce stabilizing practices like certain ways of editing, certain ways of annotating, glossing, certain formats, margins, font size, and so on and so forth. And therefore, when you write for a printing press, you have to adhere to these norms. And that is how came into existence the MLA, that is MLA style sheet, if you know, and there are different other style sheets. So these are more or less formats for writing or printing. And these are stabilizing practices. They are not dynamic, they are certain, which actually goes against the nature of humanities. But the printing press introduced them. And this is how came into existence something called book. The very existence of book or introduction of book is a very interesting phenomenon. The book became so popular, so central in our life, especially life of people associated with education. I, as the Dean Faculty of Arts and as a representative of almost 6 Vice Chancellors over a period of 20 years in Pune University, whenever I visited universities or colleges, the first thing I looked for was a library. Because the status of a college or a university depended on how many books they have, what kind of books they have, what is the diversity of topics covered under this, and so on and so forth. So book became a central concept in the whole education sector. And this book gave rise to theory, critical theories, for example, various other theories. And therefore, along with book came theories, and we, the teachers, use theories to teach books. So if Shakespeare is taught in my class in Pune, for example, if I teach Hamlet, for example, I have theories in my mind how to teach Hamlet, how to analyze Hamlet, how to dissect the play called Hamlet, and so on and so forth. So my reading of Hamlet alone is not enough. I need to acquaint myself with perspectives, approaches, and so on and so forth. So knowledge got doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and so on and so forth. So this is the impact of printing press. And that is why new pedagogical practices came into vogue. And these practices also brought into fore different ways of thinking, because new ways of doing bring into work new ways of thinking, new ways of thinking, new ways of working, new ways of dealing with each other, new ways of dealing with knowledge, new ways of approaching knowledge, and so on and so forth. And around all these ways was built the modern university system, which is nothing but a text-based system. So the modern university system founded on text-based practices, let us say initial universities appeared in high Middle Ages, and today we have advanced university system now. But all this journey is dominated by text-based practices. So this is the first transition. Now, the second transition is more important for us because this is known as the digital turn. Now, digital turn actually began with the introduction of computers. And you know, computers were introduced in the world sometime in 1940s. Of course, there were big frame computers. I still visit Pune University, where we have a special room in which only one computer is kept. And that is as big as almost 4 big size tables. And this big frame computer was nothing but a calculating machine. When you found it difficult to calculate figures on fingers, the earlier practice, you found it necessary to introduce a machine which could calculate things for human beings. So earlier computers, that is big frame computers, are basically quantitative in nature. But that was the beginning of the digital turn, which actually didn't have much impact on general life, but it has a seminal role to play into further developments. And the most important development after that was in 1970s when the desktops were invented. Of course, lots of things happened in between 40s and 75, 77, but I wouldn't go into details. Desktop reduced the size of computer, increased the space, memory, speed, and everything. And that is why this is a very, very important landmark in the development of computers. After desktop, we got the internet in 1983 and World Wide Web in 1989. The first websites were developed in 1989 based on internet. So internet and World Wide Web, WWW. Sometimes we also call it .com revolution. This .com revolution is another extremely important landmark in the development of digital turn. So with this, we enter into an entirely different area. As I told you, initially we started with accounting, or let us say computing functions. Then we entered into retrieving, then we entered into processing, and now to networking. So this journey is worth studying, and I think all humanities people should acquaint themselves with these processes. How we began with computing with big frame computers, and then how we started retrieving data. Earlier we used to store and generate reports. Now we are retrieving data. Then we started processing data, and now we are in a network environment. Another important thing that happened during this transition was the transfer of cultural material to the digital mode. Everything that is cultural, it may be dance, it may be culture, it may be folk music, it may be written books, whatever. Everything is getting shifted to the digital mode. And all that is creating something that is known as the big data. Now, big data is both digitized and born digital. If you archive something, if you scan something and upload, it is digitized. But you also create digital data. So it is born digital. Also, for example, your emails, data generated out of that, or your blogs, all that is born digital. So digitized as well as born digital combined makes the big data, and big data is the main source for everything today that we work, including ChatGPT and that Meta, whatever is available today, and even artificial intelligence actually works on the basis of big data. The only difference is the processes of accessing big data and using it for your purposes, they differ. So all this actually is related to new modes of knowledge formation. So the very process of knowledge formation in the oral era, where education was imparted through oral medium, teacher and students sitting in front of each other in, let us say, Guru Shishya tradition in India, or Plato and Aristotle tradition in Socrates and Plato tradition in Western parlance. All these processes, that is oral mode of knowledge formation and knowledge transfer or knowledge distribution or knowledge sharing, were different. During printing press, the modes changed, and today we are facing new modes of knowledge formation. Again, I wouldn't go into details because you all are familiar with this. Now, with this digital turn, there is a second transition. We actually enter into what we know as digital humanities. Now, digital humanities actually developed parallel to the development of computer technology. Now, look, I told you that during 1940s, the first computers, that is big frame computers, were built. And big frame computers use punching technology. If you know this word punching, it's very interesting. There were cards which were to be punched, okay? And those punched cards were used for printing designs, printing statements, printing tables, printing SSC board results, state board results in Pune, for example. They used this punching system till 1990. So this is how, that is why I told you that this old computer, that is big frame computer, also has a seminal role to play in our lives. So when punching system was involved along with those big frame computers, one Roberto Bussa, a Jesuit priest, he took up a project. It was the end of 1940. He used that punching system. IBM, you know, IBM is a big IT company which funded his project. He took one commentary on the Bible and analyzed that commentary using computational functions, particularly the punching cards. Now, this project went on and on and on for about 20 years. And almost in 1965 or 67, he completed it. And you would be surprised to know that the report was available in print form, not in digital form. It came into digital form only in 90s. But this is known as the first digital humanities project, that is Busa project. And precisely for this reason, you know, ADHO, Alliance of Digital Humanities Organizations at the world level, the head office is in New York. This ADHO, which supervises all ADHO activities globally, has instituted an award in the name of Busa. An individual or an organization working on digital humanities, if they show some distinguished results, they get this award. Every alternate year, this award is conferred on the individual or the organization. And therefore, this big frame computer associated with Busa project, associated with digital humanities, matters a lot for our concern. So whenever you talk about digital humanities, you have to begin with BUSA project. This BUSA project, though old in style, old in thinking, the old in ways of doing things, generated a huge curiosity and interest in the field, then not known as digital humanities, but known as something like computational technology or whatever, by different names. This gave rise to archival projects at Oxford in 1970s. People started archiving literary pieces. For example, there was Iowa University Women Writers Archives, which is very famous. You can visit and find out for yourself. So there are several such archival projects, which was the second phase in digital humanities. But in the real sense, the second wave in digital humanities started in the late 1980s, where the transition from processing to networking was witnessed. And this is the real beginning of digital humanities. And this also gave rise to some digital humanities centers in different countries, digital humanities organizations, and DH publications as well. And precisely for this reason, after 1989, when the dot-com revolution began, and outsourcing and various other things. Yes, any work? Sorry. At the beginning of the century, with the turn of the century, in 2006, MLA in its annual conference spared 2 or 3 sessions specifically for digital humanities. And that generated a huge interest in digital humanities. And young research scholars in the humanities started taking pride in calling themselves DHers. So this is all about the background of digital humanities. Now let us see what are the features of digital humanities. First, digital humanities integrates technology into the activities of humanities scholarship. Now look, I'm going to discuss 6 features of digital humanities, which are going to be repeated during my presentation for the next half an hour or so, because whenever I give you an example, I'll be visiting one or the other of these features. So first one is DH integrates technology into the activities of humanities scholarship. Second is DH is generative, and as such, it brings into world new things, new objects, and new systems. DH is collaborative. It brings together different perspectives, understanding, experience, and expertise. Collaborative is very important. Remember, I'm going to give you lots of examples of collaboration a little later, because this brings in different expertise, different perspectives, different understanding, and so on and so forth. This is a very interesting thing to remember. So integrates technology, it is generative, it is collaborative, and the fourth one is DH promotes teamwork. It's a culture of working together. You must be familiar with the research undertaken by humanities scholars. They normally work on individual projects. Individuals dedicate their time and energy and skills and everything for their own individual growth. So it's all individual centric. Whereas DH promotes teamwork. DH doesn't rely on individual scholarship or individual growth. It promotes teamwork. Similarly, DH is experiential and curative. Anything that is curative is normally experiential and vice versa, because there is hands-on approach. You do things, and while doing, you understand, you grow, you curate, you improve, and then you bring out the product. So it's a hands-on approach, and it's constantly in the making. It is not static. So DH supports the basic property of humanities, that is dynamism and uncertainty. It's always in the state of making. And finally, digital humanities is democratic. It cuts across genres and mediums, promotes dialogue among disciplines, So a project, for example, on literature may borrow insights from social sciences like psychology and sociology and anthropology, and then linguistics and social linguistics and whatnot. So it's normally multidisciplinary. It promotes dialogue among disciplines, and that is why digital humanities perfectly fits into the framework of NEP, National Education Policy. And perhaps because of that, Government of India started the initiative of Spark, under which there is a special domain of digital humanities. And I got the opportunity to work as a national chair for this domain during the first round of funding. So these are the 6 features of digital humanities. Now let us see how digital humanities works. If you remember, during COVID, you must have seen a globe, a colorful globe, and it is revolving like Earth. It is revolving around itself. It's actually globe, okay? And if you click on a point, let us say when it revolves, you come to India, and then you click approximately on Pune or Mumbai or Chennai or Delhi or whatever, and then a window pops up. This is like hypertext or hyperlinking in action. A window pops up where you get the data of patients, admitted patients, discharged, patients who died, patients who are serious, and so on and so forth, or number of vaccination and so on and so forth. The entire data for that particular place. And this is data was available for the whole globe. Because in those days, the health ministry of every country released this data officially every day, sometimes even twice a day, in the morning and evening. And there were 500 scholars, 5,000 scholars working in different parts of the world, and they were uploading that data on a website of World O Meter. And this World O Meter website was connected to this globe, and then the whole data in World O Meter reflected into that globe. So what is this? This is a DH project. Okay, now what is the DH project? So what you have to do is, you have to first of all set a research goal. So DH project is basically a product of a concrete research goal. What is your research goal? Now in this case, you wanted to make real-time data available to every user everywhere in the world. So that was your research goal. With this goal, you started creating digital assets, that is data and platform. So World O Meter website, and a lot of data that was accessed, curated, and uploaded on the website, that is their asset, right? So research goal comes first, then you create assets, digital assets, okay? So data and platform. Platform may be an application, or maybe a website, or maybe a digital tool, or whatever, okay? So research goal followed by digital assets, and then a set of services. Now, what are the set of services? You provide options for query, search, processing, or analysis. Okay, this is the third stage in any DH project. And finally, a display that supports the user experience. Now, the globe was the display. Behind the globe, you don't know what is happening, right? Because you only see the globe. So as a visitor to this globe, you just have a user experience where you can search for something, you can raise a query, you can process something, you can analyze some data, and something like that. But all that goes behind this is not known to you unless you enter into the hood and try to understand everything that happens behind the curtain or at the back end. You do not know what all goes on there. Thousands of people are working there day and night, whereas your visit to the site is just for a minute or so. So this is DH project. And therefore, understanding a DH project needs an effort to move from the front end experience, that is the globe, for example, the front end experience, to knowledge of back end and to get under the hood. So whatever happens at the back end, as I told you, there were 5,000 technicians who worked on this project day in and out all over the globe. They collected data from different health ministries, curated that data, then uploaded it on website. So all that back end work you need to understand in order to understand the DX project. So this is basically a very important way to understand digital humanities. And now let us move on to some concrete examples, because the topic of my speech is research in language and literature. So if I don't talk about language and literature, you might say that I'm just talking about technology. So I'll begin with literature. You know Hamlet and of course all the plays of Shakespeare, right? I'll tell you an example of one of the plays of Shakespeare, how it has been analyzed using the technique of distant reading. Now, if you look at this distant reading, the very term contradicts our usual way of reading, that is close reading, right? So just imagine the difference between close reading and distant reading. Close reading is something like reading between lines or reading beyond words, trying to establish links between printed words and the whole context and so on and so forth. That is close reading. So sometimes you read hardly one page per day because close reading involves a lot of exercise, mental exercise, in order to understand, make sense, or draw inferences. That is close reading. Now, distant reading, as the very name suggests, is against close reading. You don't actually read the text. You just analyze the text with the help of computers. So how computer helps you? So this definition really helps you a lot here. Distant reading is a form of text mining. You must be familiar with the term text mining. Distant reading is the idea of processing content in subjects, themes, persons, places, whatever, or information about publication date, place, author, title, etc. A large number of textual or literary items without engaging in the reading of the actual text. This is the definition given by Jonathan Tucker. Now, why this definition is significant? One of the scholars in Stanford University fed to the computer titles of something like 3,500 novels, English novels, and then developed a program which analyzed all these titles and arrived at some conclusions. For example, one of the conclusions was very interesting, that the initial titles were long, sometimes even 12 words, 11 words, 10 words, 8 words, 9 words. Gradually, they reduced to 5 words, 4 words, 3 words, even single word. This was one of his conclusions. Similarly, he derived a conclusion on the basis of dissecting 3,500 novels that most of these novels talk about a lot of minute or intricate social relationships or social trends and whatever, which may not be available in classics that we normally read and prescribe and study. And therefore, he says the conclusions about Victorian society, for example, which we draw on the basis of reading of, let us say, 10, 20, 30 novels, are likely to be inadequate or inaccurate. Whereas computer gives you trends on the basis of reading of 3,500 novels related to Victorian period. And therefore, the technique of distant reading matters a lot. Now, how this distant reading actually works? Basically, let us try to understand what is how this has come up. The term distant reading was coined by Franco Moretti in 2000. And this distant reading, he practiced with the help of network of vertices and edges. I'm going to give you example of this a little later. These are vertices and edges. So a network is made of vertices and edges. Characters are the vertices and interactions the edges, right? For example, Hamlet is the character. Hamlet is connected to Ophelia. If you look at a line here, Hamlet is connected to Ophelia. Now the thickness of line, the color of line, the length of the line indicates how intimate he is with Ophelia. If the thickness is less, then the relationship is tentative or temporary or for a very short while. In fact, all the dialogues between Hamlet and Ophelia, or Hamlet and Claudius, or Hamlet and Ghost, or Hamlet and Horatio, the number of dialogues or the number of appearances reflect into the thickness of that line. Okay, so look at the idea. So a network is made of vertices and edges. Characters are the vertices, interactions the edges. 4 hours of action. Look, Hamlet runs over 4 hours. 4 hours of action is turned into a kind of space, a character system arising out of many character spaces. So each character has a space, and that space is defined by bold or simple letters or thickness of the line, right? So character has its own space. For example, Hamlet. Hamlet occupies the maximum space because if you look at the vertices, maximum lines are connected to Hamlet, then to Horatio, then to Claudius, then to Queen, then to Ophelia, and so on and so forth. So the very importance of or centrality of a character in the play is reflected in these lines or vertices or their lengths or thickness or so on and so forth. Okay. Yes. So 4 hours of action is turned into space, a character system arising out of many character spaces. Now this model allows you to see the underlying structures of a complex object. Now here, with the help of, now this is not the only network. For Hamlet, he has developed something like 5, 6, 7, 8 networks. And with the help of these networks, Rossetti, Franco Moretti concludes that Hamlet is a complex play and Hamlet is not being able to take a decision for the reasons that already are reflected in these vertices. Okay. So in a sense, whatever we do on a piece of paper, using different approaches, theories, perceptions about Hamlet, is reflected into this network. So all the analysis at the mental level that Moretti has done is presented in the form of networks. And importance of this network is this can be replicated. For example, if you remove Hamlet and put Macbeth here and use the same technique for talking about different characters, their interrelationships, the episodes, and now, for example, in Hamlet, murder is one of the most important themes here, right? So similarly in Macbeth, the major theme will be reflected into the vertices, their length, their thickness, and the space that each character has been assigned. So this is how you can study almost 100 plays in just one day. Whereas with close reading, I doubt if you can read one single play called Hamlet in one day. It's a long play, and if you read carefully word by word, close reading, you will require at least a couple of days. Whereas with the help of this network, you can analyze Hamlet and the same pattern used for Macbeth, for King Lear, for various other plays of Shakespeare, and study all the 37 plays of Shakespeare in just one day. Because knowledge is so vast, the books published are so many, it is almost impossible for a human being to read even 1% of them. Whereas computer, this distant reading technique can help you acquaint yourself with thousands of books, okay, and then draw more appropriate conclusions on the basis of this. So this is what happens uh, uh, in the age of digital humanities. Now let us look at an example which is familiar with us. Vichitra project. This Vichitra project is about Rabindranath Tagore. You know, Rabindranath Tagore has written a lot in English and Bengali. And at Jadavpur University, there was a group under Shukanto Chaudhary that worked for about 8 to 10 years. And fortunately, they got funding from DSC, that is Department of Science and Technology, and DST, sorry. And something like 12, 15 scholars were associated with this work. So they collected all the works of Rabindranath Tagore, scanned everything, almost 96,000 pages were scanned, and they developed a tool called Prabhed, which is known as a collation tool, which lets you compare different versions of a work at 3 different levels: chapter or act, scene or paragraph or stanza. So detailed wording, timelines, and full bibliographies, everything is available on this particular platform. I have also given you the website, http://vichitra.jdvu.ac.in. So this particular uh, project gives you everything about Rabindranath Tagore. Surprisingly, if you just want to know how many times a particular keyword appeared in his literature, entire literature, you can type that and you get the list of poems or short stories or novels in which the word or the concept appear. So this Prabhed tool is very, very useful, very user friendly. You can also compare uh, two versions, one in Hindi and the other one in English, or one in Bengali and another one in English. It has got lots of options. So I would say do visit this website once and find out for yourself. This is the best Indian digital humanities project. Now I'll move on to what we have done so far, and then what is happening in the Indian university system today. So what are the emerging trends? And these trends have emerged out of our discussion also. First one is focus on application. We have treated knowledge in an application oriented fashion. We do not just read, reflect, and reproduce. We use knowledge now. We use knowledge for developing something, for creating something, for generating something, like generating a website, generating an application, generating or developing a platform. And therefore, we are also incorporating technology here. So we are production oriented. We have incorporated digital technology. And because it is production oriented and incorporating digital technologies, we need experts from different fields. And therefore, it is collaborative and multidisciplinary research. And that is why it fosters new ways of thinking and working. So earlier, Rabindranath Tagore used to be read in isolation in a small room, you alone, and now you are doing things together. Your experience is common experience, right? Earlier, the experience used to be individual. Now it is a teamwork kind of thing everywhere. So approaching Tagore, for example, in a new way also fosters new ways of working, new ways of thinking. Instead of turning the pages of a printed book, you are now just clicking on links and getting access to entire Rabindranath Tagore, including commentaries, analysis, discussion, and so on and so forth, right? So this is how new trends are emerging in literary studies. Okay. So what actually happens at the research level then? So what you do is you select an innovative research topic, maybe in language, maybe in literature, maybe in sociology or social fields. So you select an innovative research topics. I'll tell you one single example of this, because sometimes words are empty unless they are properly explained. Look at this selection of innovative research topic. We have a very small college in Pune city. It's a commerce college basically. And during lunch break, students, undergraduates, they sit in canteen or somewhere. They have their own groups. So 3 or 4 friends who always came together during lunch break, ate their tiffins and discussed on n number of topics. One of the students broached a very important problem that Indian females faced, especially in a metropolitan city like Pune. And what is the problem? Females, when they went for marketing, we have something called Lakshmi Road, which is roughly 7 to 8 kilometers long. and on both the sides of the road there are shops, especially clothing. So women move along that street, but they find it very difficult to locate toilets, especially female toilets. So they have a very tough time. Either they have to come back home, leaving their marketing half done, or visit a very expensive hotel, pay unnecessarily just because they wanted to use the uh, toilets. So this boy broached this subject, and those four students, they decided to visit the Pune Municipal Corporation Health Department and inquire about the female toilets in the city. And you know, health departments of every municipal corporation has the whole map of the city. So they located toilets on the map. They got special map of the toilets. Fortunately, they also got the information about what is the cleaning method and what is the cleaning schedule and who is the staff involved in cleaning those toilets. So they got the whole information. And you would be surprised, these undergraduates, 3, 4 undergraduates, one from science and 2 for commerce, they developed an application. They fed this map to the computer, incorporated GPS mapping, and then made this app live. Now that map is available on mobile. So if you download that application on your mobile, wherever you are in Pune city, open the application and you see that there is a toilet 200 meters on your right side or 200 meters left hand side. The left hand side toilet was cleaned at 12 o'clock. The right hand side toilet was cleaned at 2 p.m. So you can decide where to go, where not to go. Don't you think that a problem, a very, very serious and a daily and crucial problem has been solved? This is how innovative research topics are selected. In fact, if you visit the site of Haystack, HASTAC, Haystack is an American organization which organizes conferences every year in different parts of America, mainly for undergraduates. And all undergraduates who complete their DH projects as a part of their coursework in different universities, American universities, they are invited to showcase their projects during these conferences. So roughly 200 projects are showcased over a period of 5 days. And people like me, the senior ones, are invited as observers. So once I happened to be an observer in Haystack, I think it was in Arizona, Arizona State University. After 5 days, in fact, during those 5 days, during lunch breaks and tea breaks, and after the day is over, I talked to the groups who presented their projects. I must have talked to roughly 30, 40 groups over a period of 5 days, and I had typical questions for them. One of the questions was, are you going to further uh, uh, carry on this research and use it for your PhD or something like that? The answer was no. Second question was, are you going to get job because you have completed this project? The question was, we are not in search of job. So what are you planning to do then? Natural question. And you would be surprised, all those 40 groups told me that they have already launched this product or are in the process of launching or are planning to launch it. In short, all these undergrads, they are trying to be entrepreneurs. Remember, so job givers, not job seekers. This is what digital humanities stands for. And this is my confirmed opinion. You can challenge me during the discussion if you like. So this is what is selection of innovative research topic, which has to be contemporary, which has to be applied, and which has to be technologically mediated. All these words we have already discussed during the features of digital humanity. Now I'll give you some concrete examples in my own institute. I am heading an institute called Institute of Advanced Studies in English. So you would understand that this is a research institute for English. Now, one of the students who completed MA in our own institute, And then immediately the COVID set in, and all of us were confined to our homes. Now, what happened is, after the first lockdown was over, the blue collared workers, they started fleeing from their metropolitan cities. Most of the workers worked on construction sites or road sites, or all in groups on temporary jobs. They got a weekly salary, and this is how supported their families, paid their rent on the weekly basis, paid for their ration on weekly basis, and so on and so on. After 1 week was over, they became desperate because salary stopped, and they were left with no option but to run towards their native places. And then you must have read in newspapers reports about desperate walk. They undertook desperate walk for 8 days, 10 days, because there was no transport, there was no facility. Entire country had come to a standstill. Now, some groups reached in 8 days, some groups reached in 12 days. They had lots of hardships, lots of good, bad, right, wrong experiences on the way. Children and old people suffered very much. Some of them died on the way. Now, one group of 22 laborers reached Ranchi, from where this girl, our MA student, hails. And she got a news on her mobile that some 3-4 laborers known to her reached their native place. So she talked to them over telephone, and they narrated their sad stories, and she was terribly disturbed. So she called me and said, "Sir, I would like to do research on this." I said, "How would it fit into English? Because we are an English institute." She said, "I don't know, but I would like to do research on this, maybe some other institute or whatever, but I would like to do research on this desperate walk." I somehow understood her concern, and then I gave her permission to start working on it. And I knew that after 4, 5, 6 months, there'll be interviews held for admission to PhD. During that period of 6 months, we interacted over telephone for almost 20, 30 times and developed a proposal. So we decided to incorporate digital technology method for the analysis, and this is how we got the university sanction for this project. And she got registered as a PhD student, and she had just submitted her thesis after 4 years, and her application is ready for viewing. Maybe after the Viva, she'll make it public. So what she did, she picked up one single group of 22 laborers and their 12 days journey. She started studying on daily basis what time they started, what time they reached, where they took lunch, where they ate dinner, where they slept, how they slept, sometimes in the open, sometimes on the road, sometimes in jungle, sometimes under a tree. Sometimes people helped, so they slept in public school, and so on. So she collected all this information by floating a questionnaire, analyzed it, and created a timeline of those 12 days using GPS mapping, and put uh, dots on that line, each dot representing some experience or episode. So if you click that dot, the time, the day, and the people involved, all those details appear. If you click further, you get the description of that episode. If you click further, you get the analysis of that experience. If you click further, you get a message for government, message for society, message for scholars. So this is how each point is a kind of learning experience for a visitor to this site. So this is how the research is being done in Indian universities, in conventional institutes and universities like Institute of Advanced Studies in English, Pune, my own institute. I founded this institute out of my provident fund. We have so far awarded 170 PhDs, and she will be the next now. So this is desperate walk, right? The research on desperate walk. Similarly, one of my students is working on partition fiction using digital technology. One of our students has completed research on domestic violence during COVID epidemic. One of our students has completed his research on cognitive pragmatics. She has been collecting responses of students from 17 different countries on 20 very simple English poems She wants to prove that reading and interpretation are basically cultural activities, not scholarly or linguistic activities. So imagine what kind of trends are emerging in research. This is what matters for humanities, and perhaps in NEP, when English is removed as a compulsory subject, when English is being sidelined by introducing the policy of going to local languages and Indian languages and so on and so forth, the English teachers have no option but to enter into digital humanities and ensure that they are more relevant, that they are more innovative, that they are more applied, that there are more contemporary, that there are more technology savvy. Okay, so this is what matters. Now, National Research Foundation supports this kind of idea. I will not go into these details because you all are familiar with this. NRF, that is National Research Foundation. The bill has been passed in Indian Parliament, and this NRF has come into existence now. Now, what NRF is going to do? It has four wings: imprint, impress, stride, and spark. I've given full forms of imprint, impress, stride, and spark. You can read them for yourself. And as I told you, I headed one of the groups under Spark scheme. I'll talk about that and I'll conclude my speech. Under Spark, as I told you, we sanctioned something like 37 research projects from different Indian universities and gave them grant on an average 2 crore rupees each. Now, these are the topics, some of the topics that have been sanctioned grants, but I'll just focus on one. Number 3, safe behavior on the internet. Research training of teachers, parents, and adolescents. Number 3, okay, safe behavior on the internet. Now, what is this project about? I've purposefully not given you the name of the university, name of investigators, and so on and so forth for obvious reasons. But I'll explain to you what this project is going to do, for which we have sanctioned something like 1 crore 87 lakh rupees or something. Under this project, this is undertaken by English department of a university in South India. English department of a university in South India. Now, this department has collaborated with different other departments on the campus, like education department, psychology department, computer science department, and even information science department. This is one kind of collaboration. Secondly, it has collaborated with 2 American universities where they get experts related to this kind of research. So there are 10 or 11 primary investigators, right? Principal investigators. And these 10 or 11 principal investigators belong to different disciplines. So remember, this is basically multidisciplinary. And they're all working with the help of technology. Now, what is their intention? They have identified a problem related to online behavior of adolescents. Adolescents means 11 to 20-year-old. These adolescents are easy to be manipulated, easy to be exploited, easy to be misused, and online spaces are so risky, they easily fall a prey to some temptations and they lose their track. Now, they are going to identify the risk zones in online spaces. And these risk zones, common risk zones for adolescents, they will be identified, and they will also study how adolescents are lured towards those risk zones. And then they'll come out with some kind of guidelines or some kind of guided solution to coming out of these risk zones. Okay, so this is how there'll be a guided solution for coming out of risk zones in online spaces. And if the children do not come out of risk zones, automatically an alert will be sent to teachers and parents. And that is why there is training of teachers and parents also. So parents and teachers will be alerted that XYZ child is has lost the track and is running into some risk. So before it is too late, please take the following steps. So there'll be a guided tour for parents and teachers also in their effort to bring that child out of the risk zone. So when this application will be ready, obviously it will be owned by Government of India because it is funded by Government of India. And then it will be mandatory for mobile providing companies to have it inbuilt into their mobiles so that every child, every parent, every teacher has that app on their mobile. And this is how it will be a national property after it is completed after 3 years. So this is how projects are being identified, projects are being funded, projects are being promoted. Now, what is the crux of the matter? Criteria for grants, collaborative. I'm telling you the crux of the matter now. Unless a project is collaborative, unless research is collaborative, whether it is on linguistics, literature, whatever, unless it is collaborative, no grants are available. Unless it is production oriented. Now, production doesn't mean that you have to have a tangible product like chair and table and wall and something like that. You can have a digital product like this tool, for example. So it has to be production oriented. It has to be multidisciplinary. No human problem is monodisciplinary. Remember very well. We still have 10-20 minutes in this session. If anyone finds one single problem of human being which is monodisciplinary, I'll give you some reward. So keep this in your mind. If human problems are multidisciplinary, we need to be multidisciplinary in our approach in every kind of research. Number 4, it has to be technologically mediated, because without that, you cannot collect optimum information or optimum data. You cannot analyze it effectively. You cannot disseminate the findings optimally, and you cannot achieve optimum good of maximum number of people, right? To use Malthus's terminology. And finally, it has to be application oriented. Some social problem has to be picked up. Some social problem has to be addressed too, so that you become socially useful, the researcher becomes socially useful. So this is how research in India and research the world over is growing into, and that's what I wanted to share with you. Now you can ask me questions. Please feel free if you don't agree with me, if you have any doubts, queries, even attacks. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the enlightening session, sir. Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, since we are not computer science background, if we want to do a project, do we have to collaborate with computer science professionals, or do we need a to do a
So,
course, or because it is all about computer science, and it's all digital. So how will we do it without the
look,
knowledge of?
that is why I sense this danger that people might think that I'm talking about computers. Actually, I didn't talk about computers. I talked about humanities only.
No, humanity, sir, but we want to do a project now. We want to implement it without the help of the computer science professional. How we
Yes,
do that?
I can understand your worry, Dr. Pungudi. That's why I've been emphasizing on a word. You have to collaborate. Now,
Uh,
collaboration can be of two different kinds. One is you do your project, like for example, our PhD student who worked on Desperate Walk. She worked alone, but towards the end, she took help of her husband, who is an IT professional. So he helped her develop that site, incorporate GPS and so on and so forth. And he did it just out of his affiliation to his wife. He didn't charge her anything. Okay,
okay.
but he helped her in the last leg of her research. But anyway, there was collaboration. So this is one type of collaboration, that you do your research for 90% time and 10% you hire someone. Secondly, right from the beginning, you collaborate with computer science person. That is perhaps better, because you can get insights also from the person. Technology shapes your thinking and you shape the thinking of technocrats. Okay. So this is a kind of give and take. This kind of collaboration is more healthy. In addition to that, you can always pick up people from different departments who can be associated with your project. But it has to be collaborative. It's always better. That's
Yes.
why I floated a question. If you want an award, Tell me one single problem of human beings which is monodisciplinary. Yes.
Any questions from the participants? Now, if you want, you can unmute. Rekha Bhatt, ma'am, you can ask a question. Unmute and
Uh, Good evening, sir. One question that I have is,
Yeah.
when we go into this, I fully understand that it is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. But then, as English researchers, when a PhD scholar takes up a topic which has a lot of this technology content in it, how would the work be perceived? Meaning by the referees or by the English fraternity, how would it be perceived?
Now look, if you have the old people in mind,
Mhm.
that is why perhaps you are asking me this question.
Yeah.
Now
So conventionally, people think that it has to come from very strong literature theory background. So now when technology comes into it, how will it be?
look, you're not saying goodbye to theory. Please remember it very well. You're not saying goodbye to theories, approaches, perceptions that you've studied so far. All the
Okay.
insights that you gained by studying feminism, for example, post-colonialism, for example, or cultural studies, for example, you can incorporate them in your research. There's no doubt about it. What is important is you are incorporating technology for analysis and for increasing the scale of impact. Okay, because so far what happens, our research remains in thesis, and those theses remain in university libraries. Nobody touches them. In fact, there is a very interesting word for that: shelf bending thesis. So we wouldn't like to create shelf bending thesis here onwards. So theses have to be application oriented. They should be read, referred to, used by further researchers. And if that has to happen, then you have to transform yourself. You have to become a more relevant researcher and take help of different people who can nurture your research into a better kind of fruitful, uh, some result-oriented research which addresses some social problems. Now, as far as the question of experts and referees dealing with your thesis is concerned, when experts belong to, let us say, analog only world like me, for example, they normally don't challenge your work because perhaps they don't want to enter into the risk of getting called uh, outdated or something of that kind. But they definitely try to understand your thesis. Number one. Number two, if they don't understand, they will not assess. They will request the university to send your thesis to some relevant experts. And experts who are, let us say, in their 40s today, they are definitely techno-savvy. In Maharashtra, at least, even in Chennai, for example, in Chennai, there is memory studies department in your Chennai University, right? So there
IIT
are,
Madras, sir. IIT
So,
Madras, they have memory studies. Uh,
yes. So there are experts and experts and experts in digital humanities, but they're appointed as English teachers, right? So he may be professor in English, associate professor in English. The digital humanities designation is not given to us, but most of our actually practicing digital humanities that we don't know. Right. So I think
yes,
anybody can be an expert for evaluation or guiding or whatever apprehensions you have in your mind.
agree, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very, giving an assurance to us, sir, because we are trying to get into this area. That was one apprehension. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
any other questions from the participants, or else we'll close the session?
Please
You can
feel free.
post the questions. Any questions, or you can post the questions in chat box also. I think there are no questions. I think we can end the
So
session, sir.
shall we conclude the session?
Sir?
So shall we conclude the
Yes.
session.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for elaborating on digital humanities. You have started with the basics, the emergence of digital humanities, the features of the DH, and you also discussed about various projects and the emerging trends. And you didn't stop the theoretical framework, but also provided with examples that we educators and researchers can integrate into our own research practices, and the clarity with which you articulated the role of digital humanities in breaking traditional boundaries was truly remarkable. And we are grateful for your emphasis on how this digital platform can bridge the gap between disciplines, enhance accessibility, and bring fresh perspectives to cultural and literary studies. And it is this innovative approach will undoubtedly empower us to rethink our practices and make meaningful contributions to our ever evolving academic landscape. Thank you once again, sir, on behalf of the department for this enlightening session, because it is almost new for everyone in the humanities. Uh, and I think this will be the eye opener, or to have you also discussed about the projects we can work on. And thank you for all your ideas and the session. And when I called, you immediately accepted. And thank you for being here, presenting this wonderful session, sir. Thank you all. Thank you all the participants for participating in the session, and we expect the same for tomorrow, the next session at 10 a.m. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pangudi, and
Thank
I
you,
enjoyed
sir.
this session.
Thank you, sir. We enjoyed.
Have a
Thank you,
nice time.
sir. Bye, sir. Bye, sir.